So, Marla, I'm so glad that you're here with me.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
So, when you and I met, you were stepping off of this executive development program that you and I were
Yeah.
in, and I was stepping in. So, we met during both going through,
Hmm.
and I was immediately struck by how I like to learn with you. Like, you're
Hmm.
someone who I gauge, like, you can go deep.
Hmm.
This is someone I want to learn with on this. And so,
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
just to let people who are listening tell us a little bit about you before we kind of go through talking about your change.
Yeah, sure. So about me, I am a mother to almost 19-year-old twins, someone who's been married for 26 years with my partner for like almost for 30, I think. Also a daughter, caretaker. So my 87-year-old mother lives with us. So I'm sharing all of that intentionally because that's like the fullness of my life of just like home. And then I'm someone who really supports people through transformation and healing and change. So in the form where you and I met was through executive coaching. I work one-on-one with individuals, but I also do group work. I facilitate retreats, predominantly centered on the experiences of women from the global majority. I'm bridging a lot of different modalities in my work. So like while I have the Western, the coaching and the master's degree and around clinical practice and organizational practice, I also was an apprentice to a curandera for 4 years, about 20 some years ago. So that's like a Mesoamerican traditional healing system, and a student of yoga, meditation, and breath work and different somatic practices for 25 plus years. So I bring all of those different modalities into my work to support humans to really uncover like the depths of who they are and like help move away the stuff that isn't like the truth of them, that we just pick up along the way when life has its way with us, to really get to the core for us to be able to just be super aligned with our purpose and our passion and the impact that we want to make.
Mm. So powerful.
Thank you.
Okay, so I had asked you to kind of bring us through a significant change, looking at something could be work or personal that
Hmm.
impacted your life, and love to learn what it was and kind of how you came through it in a satisfying
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, it's funny because I have one that I was like intensely was like, oh, I feel like I should focus here, and when we can go there. And then there was, and our little prep conversation, I was like, oh, well, maybe there's another one. But the first one is one that I'm very much currently in, and that is one that's been very personal in terms of just like my own wellness and thinking through this stage of my life as I'm perimenopausal, menopausal, going into different life stages, like really wanting to refocus into the humanness of me, right? Like the actual physical body and the creative part of me. So these two parts of me that I wouldn't say fell by the wayside in motherhood role, but I think that I completed recently a cycle of my motherhood journey where my kids, is their first year at college. So there's a real opportunity for me to just be like, wow, there was a way in which I parented that was like so all in and really trying to be really intentional. And there is a limited amount of time in a day. Now that I have so much more time, what do I want to do with that?
Mm.
And so I, like many of us, have always been like, oh, I really want to focus on my wellness and focus on my physical body and create space for myself in that way. And one of the things that was really powerful for me was to recognize that I felt like I was kind of in this loop where I wanted to make these changes. And whether it was eating differently or really intensely moving in my body every day with exercise, I would get in these loops where it's like, I want to, and I'm doing a little bit and then it stops, right? I would say this last month, I'm in week 5 of really being intentional with practices, and I'm noticing such a shift. And when I thought through like what made that true, like what shifted this reality this time, like what is different about this time, there were a few things. And one was anchoring in to a deeper why that was beyond like, oh, I want to fit into my old pants, or even beyond, oh, I want to feel stronger in my body, which was both of them were valid. But I think that those were easier answers
Mhm.
where this last year, I know I have, as I mentioned, I have my mother just turned 87, and thankfully, knock on wood, she's in great health, but I've definitely noticed a lot of cognitive shifts this year. And there's so many people in my extended family life, whether it's like I have a group of dear girlfriends that we go to back together like 25 to 30 years, and half of the mothers like of my dear friends have Alzheimer's. My mother-in-law has Parkinson's disease, like my cousin's boyfriend, Parkinson's, my best friend's dad died of Parkinson's, like all these really neurological disorders that have deeply impacted cognitive function as well as physical function. And at my mother's 87th birthday in December, she's like the matriarch of all of her cousins. And she's the one who really looked the most vibrant and the most healthy. And even though she had cognitive shifts, it's definitely not the same level as other folks. And so, given that all of that has been around me and I've seen the impact that it has on the toll for the caretakers, right? And also the heartbreak for the people who are experiencing it because they're recognizing they're experiencing it. I was able to anchor into like a really big why of, oh, I really want to focus in on my brain health and on my vitality and being able to be fully present as much as possible for my kids and hopefully grandkids if I have them one day, And that anchoring was very, very different than I want to fit back into some old pants, Like that really shifted something for me. And so I think the why of anchoring into like really the deepest, deepest why.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
And you know what's so interesting is I'm listening to you, and I think it's important, and you tell me, you anchored into a deeper why for you, like not so that I can be there for my mother, although I'm sure that be an outcome, but it was like for myself. I
Yeah.
want the deepest vitality.
Especially, I feel like this pressure for women, for us as we're aging, to look a certain way or to try to hold on to youth in a certain, because our society really prizes that. For me, it's not about holding on to youth, right? It was like trying to hold on to older versions of myself. And
Yes.
this is actually saying, no, I actually want to become an elder, and how like I want to be super present and cognitively healthy and fit in that was a big reframe for me
Mm.
to be able to say this is actually for just for me, but also on some level is for my kids, right? Like there's a toll that caretaking takes, right? And so wanting to make sure that I can be as vibrant as possible for as long as possible to minimize the impact of that.
All right, keep going, because you said there were other things.
Yeah, well, so there was the first one, right? That was the
Huge.
first thing. And then the second was, having gone through both of my kids going off to college, right? And it's funny because people were like, oh, you can be an empty nester. And I had such a visceral reaction. I was like, no, I'm not an empty nester. Like I'm a bird launcher, right? Like I'm launching these people out into the world. And that's a very different reframe. Like there's something almost like a loss that comes with that, with the empty nest. And I had always such a visceral reaction. And also, I'm not fully empty nesting because we have an elder that's also, I would call her my elder teenager, like eat your vegetables, mom, right? I don't want to eat my vegetables. You're like, dude, just eat the damn vegetables. And so I think that for me, the beauty of like that transition, it's actually been really beautiful. And I think it's been beautiful because as a family, like we are all really close and we actually really like each other.
Mm.
And so all of the work that I put in to make sure we had a really good, healthy relationship, I feel that I'm reaping the payoff and the benefit of that now that they're away. Like,
Mm.
yes, of course they want to go and fly, but I don't feel the sense of they're running away from us. So they're very still deeply connected. But I'm like, I talked to my daughter for an hour and a half last night, and I was like, I gotta go to sleep. I have an early morning appointment, But like, or my son will just call me a few times a week because he's in international, and so there's something about like that transition that has actually been very easeful, even though it's been, of course, I miss them, but there's been a lot of ease in that transition, I think, because of all of the ways in which we prepared for a certain kind of relationship and put our family first and how we developed those kinds of levels of communication and intimacy so that we're still really close. And it's, so it's just a new phase, but it doesn't feel like a loss. Where I talk to some parents, it feels like such a loss. And I'm like, I don't feel like it's a loss. Like this is what we prepared them for, and this is exactly it. And
Yeah.
so it's just a morphing in that relationship. So those were the two that really stuck out to me.
I think that's so beautiful and actually extraordinary. And I think this, I can imagine for your kids, it's like having this no pressure on them to maintain that connection.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
desire to be connected. Like
yeah.
there's this, like what's that saying of like, if you want something, set it free.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
So powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
So this transition to move towards having this more focus into your physical body and also your creativity, you were saying too. Tell me more about that.
I'm really tapping into communal support. So, in the first example of my body, like a group of girlfriends, and really I know only one of the women in person, and the other ones we've just been this group through her. And we have like a WhatsApp group. We all joined a very specific program that you could do from home. And so we're like exercising and like every day, just like supporting each other in our goals. And so that level of community support and being able to touch in like daily with somebody has been really helpful. And also being able to call out like you're being really hard on yourself, right? Like give yourself grace. It isn't about perfection. And but being able to share in each other's wins and almost like be in this container where we're all moving towards the same goal has been great. And then for my creativity, I have a few different creative projects that I'm working on. And one of my patterns has been that I'll make space for it theoretically, where I'll think of my year and be like, I'm not going to take XYZ clients because I'm going to use this time to write, or I'm going to use this time to do XYZ. And then it gets filled back up with work or with something else. And this year I was like, nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So my theme for the year has been devotion, and it's been devotion to me, devotion to self. Like what are the things that I wanted to be devoted to? And devotion really feels like a much more sacred practice than discipline. And so with the creative projects, I joined a group, and it's a writing practice, and it's based in rest. And so we meet monthly, and that just started, but there's things to do between our meetings. And that one is I'm still building that muscle. So it doesn't feel as further along as the other one. So I do recognize that for me, change is much more sustainable when I'm being held accountable. And I mean, there's research to that. Your likelihood of manifesting what you said you're going to do, it increases by X%, whether if you have an accountability partner. Like that's just the reality of it. And so I'm really seeing that in action. And so I'm building that muscle and with the creative practices as well.
And we know people who could cite that exact statistic. I'm interested in when you said you see it more as sacred versus discipline. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, because I think that like in our culture, we're so about the productivity and the doing. And so at the beginning of the year, and this I think is an aspect to also what has been supportive, especially with the physical kind of wellness and focusing on my body, was in December during the winter solstice. I basically like hosted something in my house, and we did some intention setting, and intentions are different than goals. It was just like really putting forth this idea that my intention is to really show up for myself in these two areas of my life. That's what I'm putting forth out into the universe. But there's something about saying devotion to these two areas as a very ritualized practice versus discipline feels much more hard hitting. It has a sharper edge.
Yeah.
And I think that if your discipline can be shifted to devotion, then the acts become more sacred versus a have to and a hard hitting like productivity, right? That's how I hold discipline. It's more like I'm being productive, and it's a productivity lever.
Yes.
Versus devotion feels like actually a much more lever to open you to the sacred and to the softer energy, still incredibly potent and powerful, but it doesn't feel as like patriarchal productivity. Let's go,
Yes. Well, what it also sounds like to me is along those lines is it isn't just about doing, it's about being. So it's allowing in that aspect, right? When you
Yeah.
say sacred, I hear is like, stuff doesn't just happen through my doing.
Yeah.
There's more that gets
Yes.
lined up
Yes. 100%.
energetically. And it sounds like for both of these, both on your vitality, your physical vitality and wellness, and on your creativity, there was this element this time of what's working is kind of stepping back and leveling up, have like a deeper meaning for you.
I give this example a lot, like in the framework that I lead some of my clients through. We work on what are the qualities that you want to embody to be not even the want that you feel you need to embody in order to meet the moment of the goal that you want, right? So the example I always give is if my goal is I want to have this relationship with my kids, that's the goal as a parent, then there are certain things I have to cultivate in myself, right? And I have to cultivate patience. I might have to cultivate non-judgment. I might have to cultivate perhaps slower reaction times or reactivity, right? There's qualities that you're gonna need to cultivate.
Yes.
And for me, like that there was very clear things I felt like I needed to cultivate in order to be able to say, I want to have a relationship that's like super open communication. Like that feels so important to me. Something that I had to cultivate within myself. Not necessarily boxes that I had to check off of things I had to do, but qualities I had to learn to embody. That's how I feel like I was able to meet the moment and reap these benefits of having this really strong relationship with my kids where we get a lot of intel, and it's just like, okay, just receive it and be with it.
Yeah.
Like straight face, I'm here. I'm gonna just hold it all, without the judgment, but more of like the consultation and being able to like help guide and ask questions versus like this is what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Or a controlling way. And so I share that because I think it is about the qualities that I speak for myself that I've had to really embody and not always skillfully and not always successfully, but it was a practice.
I deeply appreciate that. And you're leading into what was my next question, which is what are the things, and I know you're still in this, right? You're in process. You're also talking about, past success or change that you're in now. Like what are you needing to cultivate within yourself? What are you needing to grow?
I would say crafting a system that supports me when I'm working to not abandon myself. Because what'll happen is if I'm on vacation or I have a limited client, a very light client load that week, like I'm all in. It's when I have these other roles, right? And those roles could be work. Those roles were also motherhood, right? Like for this last year, I intentionally, and some of it's intentional, right? And some of it's not intentional, right? So I very specifically said I have 2 kids that I'm gonna have to support through the college application process. I'm taking a lot of time off. I'm not working all different programs that I'd worked on and been faculty for. I was like, I'm not going to work those because I need to have the emotional bandwidth for the evenings. There was a financial cost to that, but there was an energy gain for that. So some of it's intentional, right? Like absolutely intentional, because that's how I wanted to mother, like really immersively, almost like the way I did when I stayed home with them for the first 2 years, right? 2.5. So it was like almost the same thing, right? It was like at these different transitions, I'm going to be super immersive. But I also can't just make it about them because I will also abandon myself when work gets really hectic. Finding like the system that supports me to really show up for myself no matter what is something that I'm growing within myself. Because I didn't necessarily grow up with models who were exercising, right? I grew up with like immigrant family members who are like, they're getting up and going to work. Like if there's not exercise, the life is your exercise. And, it's funny because we'll still to this day, like, Mom, come on a walk with us. I don't want to go on a walk, right? She, the doctor's like, you really should go out. Like, it's really good for your brain health. And she's like, I'm going up and down the stairs. And so for her, it's like exercise is almost like not something you do. But yet, if I say, let's go to Huntington Gardens and let's go walk and see the gardens, totally down for that and come be there for hours, right? So it's like, I didn't grow up with this concept of you took time as a woman or as a head of household to do that.
Yes.
And so I find that quickly seeps in as it actually wasn't like an imprint that I got when I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just wasn't.
Wow. Okay. So girl, that's a book. How to not abandon yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's a book.
Yeah.
Okay. Now tell me about the creativity.
Yeah, I mean that is, but that's I think the same thing. It's the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really, I would say those are the two imprints that were not really valued in my family, right? Like it was just like you're here and you go and you assimilate and you do best in class and best in show and you go to the best universities, right? Like you're on the track. So those weren't necessarily things that were cultivated. So it's like I'm having to cultivate those for myself.
Thinking about how creativity isn't generally immediately monetized.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us who are raised with that, you got to
Mm-hmm.
be productive.
Mm-hmm.
So it really takes that carving out that.
And it's values, right? I mean, and the funny thing is that my husband's an artist and my kids are artists, right? So so it's definitely something that we've cultivated intentionally, and yet it's one of my edges that I just didn't cultivate. I didn't get that kind of cultivation.
This is so fascinating, Marla. So what advice would you give to
Mm,
yourself, having just
mm,
listened to some of these things? Like, what advice do you need to give to yourself
mm.
as you stay on this journey?
I would just stay the course. Like you're gonna have to do a lot of unlearning of old ways, old habits that they're not gonna get you where you want to go. Or at least they've gotten you thus far, but they're not gonna get you to the next. It's funny, my mind's going to another place because in the call that you and I were on, one of our colleagues made a great, I should have written it down. It was you've come so far, but is this as far as you want to go? And it was like, no, I have so much more, right? Like so I think it's like, yes, honor, like you've come this far. Is this all you far you want to go? And absolutely not. Like I have so much more that I'm excited about. And so just keep going, like keep going. And perfection is in all the beautiful messiness of it all. Like that's the journey, that's the growth. It's not the destination. Like that's the point. Keep swimming, Dory.
Dory, keep swimming. So, well, this is so beautiful.
Or
So,
maybe it was Nemo. Nemo was swimming, right? To find Dory. I think it says he keeps swimming.
I'm not
I think it's finding, because I think it's finding Dory, and it's Nemo's finding Dory.
this was so fascinating just to learn about your journey and how you're in process. Thank you for your generosity and sharing that.
Yeah, just be in devotion to yourself. Like, what else do you need, right? To get right back.
So cool.